if you've not grown any vegetable, potatoes are not a bad place to start from. Any experience with potatoes?
So I did actually this year grow my first crop of potatoes, and they did really well. So I was very impressed with myself. I did leave it to my husband to do a lot of the hard work, graft. But, I got a bit involved, and I was really impressed by what we produced. They tasted so much better than, what you can buy in the shops. And you get so many. We just kept digging and pulling more and more up. So I was very impressed,
you've got young kids as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I always say that first experience of taking kids out and connecting them, and they're digging up potatoes, it's like finding diamonds in the soil, and the kids are getting so excited. And then actually as a parent, cooking and providing for a family, and watching them pop a potato in. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing, and the fact they've seen the process from the beginning to the end. You can just plant something in the ground and it grows into food, and that blows their mind, doesn't it? And then you cook something with it and they're like, wow, that is amazing. So I love that whole journey. They are part of that experience. And I think also growing things encourages them to try new things, because it kind of demystifies fruit and veg, and it's not something scary anymore. It's something exciting and they want to engage with it. So I'm all for it. I just need all the tips from you to make me a better gardener so that I can get on board.
So I suppose if I go back actually to a kid, I went and I was dropping potatoes in a trench. And that was my first experience of it. And it seemed like the simplest thing in the world. And I'm going to ask you a question to test you. So planted your potatoes, were they first earlies, second earlies, or main crop?
Now we're getting into too much detail. I don't know. My mum gave me some, what are they called? The baby potatoes that you plant.
So basically your seed potatoes.
Yeah. So my mum gave me some, said chuck those in the ground and you'll be amazed at what you pull up. Because my mum is a great gardener, but unfortunately she didn't pass her skills on to me. So I did what she told me to do, which is what I do with most things in the garden. And hey presto, we got potatoes, but I don't know the details.
No, because that's the funny thing, isn't it? Straight away you think, well, it's a potato, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a potato. It's simple, isn't it? But, when we grow, they break into three categories. So we've got our first earlies, we've got our second earlies, and we've got our main crops, So I always think about the first earlies are those, when you go down the supermarket or you go to the local market and you're looking for those Jersey Royals, aren't you?
Yeah, now you're speaking my language.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's those really earlies, and then the second earlies, I always think about a bit more as my salad potatoes, all right? So a little bit more into the season, and that main crop is my roasted. That's how I break them up.
I'm with you now. I understand.
So if you think about your first earlies, they go in. In fact, actually, I suppose really this year, or last year I should say, I didn't even put my first earlies in the ground because it was too cold and it was too wet, and because they're going in about sort of where I live, sort of end of March, and I put them in big containers. But so that's another thing I suppose with potatoes is you can grow them in pots. You don't need a big plot, So once those first ones go in, mine went in, and then after that, 10 weeks later, the next ones go in, and probably about 6, 8, even 10 weeks later, the next lot go in. So once you set your firsts up, if you were going to grow one lot, I'd just grow the first ones.
Okay.
Because the time you get to the last ones, you can get decent potatoes down the market.
Right.
And they're the first ones that are really, really lovely.
They're so exciting, aren't they? When when the Jersey Royals appear, or the first salad potatoes appear of the year, it's such an exciting culinary moment, and you're done with all the kind of winter produce. Yeah. As nice as it is at the time, you're over it and you want something new, and then they come in with the asparagus and all the other lovely things that start coming through. And it's just such a joy to cook with them, and just some lovely early potatoes with some mint and butter. There's just nothing better, is there? It's such a great moment in the year for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And they just take no time to cook either, do they?
Yeah.
And sounds like I'm doing all right because I put mint and butter in mine. So yeah. And would you just use just hot bang, just with things like asparagus, things like that? Was that what you'd do?
Yeah. So I think when they first come through, I want the pure taste. So I keep it quite simple. But then maybe a week or two in, I might start cooking something slightly different experiment with them and roast them up with some other flavours. I think you do want to keep it quite pure and just really enjoy that lovely flavour.
Yeah,
personally,
it's incredible, isn't it? So in a sense, that idea of gardening, right? So we nailed it. We've got our first earlies, our second earlies, and our main crop, right? So next, you said about your mum giving you seed potatoes, all right? The little potatoes that you pop in the ground. Well, did those little potatoes have any sort of... Actually, you know when you leave potatoes in the bag too long, in the bottom of the fridge, and they sprout, all right? So our first, our earlies, you want those sprouting before they go in the ground.
Okay,
right? So what you do is you get that seed potato, and you'll see at the top of it these tiny little eyes. And the best thing to do is stick those in egg boxes, old egg boxes. Put them on a windowsill, probably about really four weeks plus, and then you want to grow those lovely shoots.
Right, okay.
Because that then gets those potatoes away really early. And then, so what I do is I grow them, get the shoots coming up on the first earlies, and then I'll rub off probably any of the weaker shoots. So I'll keep 3 or 4 before they go into the ground.
Okay.
So then when I've got my potato ready, I will trench. I'll make a trench if I'm not doing them in bags or buckets, and my trench will be probably about a foot, so you're younger than me, so let's say 300 mil, all right?
No, I'm still on a foot.
Bless you. So they'll go in, and then I'll cover those over. Be a bit mindful about frost and bits and pieces. So that's your next stage with your potatoes.
Okay.
All right. And then have you ever heard the term earthing up?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I know all this from my first crop of potatoes.
Go on. You tell me.
So, I might be doing this
That's
wrong.
Good.
But we basically just kept piling the soil as they were growing, and shooting up higher. We would just keep piling the soil over the top of them. That's it.
Totally spot on. Absolutely spot on. So every time the green gets probably about 15 centimetres out, bury the green. Do you know why we're doing that?
No, not a clue.
No. So have you seen the green potatoes?
Yes.
You've seen the green on potatoes, and obviously that green is poisonous.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you want, and that's caused a lot of the time by light. So by earthing up our potatoes, what we're doing is we're stopping the light getting to the new potatoes.
Right.
And that's why you end up with beautiful, potatoes.
Right, okay.
There you go. And as far as that sort of, what we call chitting, and growing, I don't worry quite so much when I get onto second earlies or main crops.
Okay.
For me, that first early is the one that, I'll be honest, it gets all the tender loving care because there's not a lot else going on at the time. So that's all going on. And then by the rest of them, I'm getting a bit busy. So just go
you get what you get.
Yeah, exactly. So if we moved on then, I suppose, to the salad potatoes, those mid-season potatoes, what would you do with those?
Oh, so, a lovely potato salad is just gorgeous at that time of year, isn't it? And you can really jazz it up with loads of different things. I really like a bit of sizzled chorizo through a potato salad. Any kind of, charcuterie or cured meat through there is really nice. I went to Texas once, and they do a really nice potato salad with chopped egg through it, which is delicious, and loads of sweet mustard. So a bit of mustard and honey could kind of replicate that, and obviously a creamy base sauce, so a bit of mayo or yogurt through there. I really like punchy flavours as well. So mustard, spring onions, maybe some crispy onions on top, and potato salads are just great, aren't they? When at that time of year, when the young potatoes are coming through and you're having barbecues, or you might be starting to eat outside, that's a lovely thing to do with them. But also more of a summery roast, if you chuck them around a roast chicken and just cook them quite simply in their skins with whole garlic cloves and rosemary or thyme. That's a lovely, easy way to cook them, and just they absorb all of the chicken juices and the fat from the chicken, which is just gorgeous. They're such simple, beautiful things to eat, so I think you want to keep it quite simple and just enjoy nice, clean flavours with them.
Mate, if this was a date...
Am I getting points?
Oh, mate, I'm sure, I'm thinking... Am I dribbling? Is anything going on, But... It's magical. Yeah. That's what I'd say, that idea that you grow, and I think that's the point. People go, why would you grow potatoes? Why would you bother? And I think what you've just described, that's why you do it.
Yeah.
Because point one, if they're in your own garden, they're very likely to be organic. You know exactly where they're coming from. You know, you've tended them, you've loved them, you've dug them, and then you're providing them for the table, you know.
Yeah.
And interestingly as well, I think you can start to play with varieties. So is there any particular varieties of potatoes that you're drawn to, or?
So from the salad potatoes, I love like an Anya potato.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably don't know some of the more exciting ones, but I'll always pick up a bag of Anyas if I see them in the supermarkets. And like we said, I love the Jersey Royals. Yeah. Something which has a bit of flavour in there, a bit of sweetness and creaminess. I really enjoy that. How about you? What are your favourites?
No, it's interesting because I think, again, we don't really, with potatoes, but different potatoes grow better or worse in different parts of the country on different soils, all right? So I used to work for a fellow Hamilton who used to present garden as well. So as far as the magazine, he was around when the magazine first started, you know? And his ground could never really grow very good Maris Pipers. Bog standard potato for a lot of people, it's a pickup, you know, if you go and you're in the market or whatever. But his just would never. And it was the first time I went, hold on, there's more to this. And over the years, I started to experiment with different potatoes. And I think it's everybody, if you're first into gardening, don't just go for the norm, try lots of different potatoes. For me, there's a potato called, so Red Duke of York, which I use really as an early. It's a heritage potato, red-skinned. Nobody would jump up and down and, you know, say, this is the answer for everything. And when I moved into not the house I'm in, but the house before, I put a load of these in. Gone away for a week or so, and one of the kids had said to me before I left, like, Dad, you know, what can we take out of the garden? I said, the potatoes are Red Yorks at the end, but you can have this, this and this. Anyway, a week and a half later, I get back and nobody says, Dad, how are you? You know, are you all right? Did you have a good time? And nothing like that, because that's my life. But actually, everybody said to me, individually, what were those potatoes? What were those potatoes? And I went, what? Those potatoes, those red ones they were the best potatoes I'd ever tasted. And I'm like, well, they're just a heritage potato, you know. Anyway, a couple of days later, I cooked some. Oh, my. They were absolutely incredible. And the potatoes that came out of that ground that year, they were all nice, but nothing matched that Red Duke of York.
Wow. So do you think sometimes there's a synergy between the soil and the potato?
Massively, because I've now moved, and last year I put in the Red Duke of Yorks, and they were nice. Yeah. But they're not like they were at that other house, you know. So I'm now back on that experiment-wise. And I think the lovely thing about growing your own, you know, is that can experiment and you can try the different varieties. And I think, I don't know how much you sort of know about this, but what the goodness of potatoes, because from what I've read and what I understand, the more heritage something is and the less it's messed with, actually in reality, you know, it is better for us. It carries more vitamins and different bits and pieces. Is that just pie in the sky, or is there some sort of truth in that?
I think there's definitely something in that, certainly with other types of produce as well. I mean, potatoes are full of vitamin C, aren't they? I think they used to be used to prevent scurvy, and we think of them as just quite a starchy kind of side of the plate thing, and you know, they're not counted as one of your 5 a day. So I think we dismiss them sometimes as something that isn't nutritionally beneficial, but actually they have got, you know, packed with vitamin C, they've got potassium in them, so they are good for you. They're a good source of vitamins, and I think there's definitely something in that, you know, sourcing those heritage varieties for the flavour, like you say, but also for the nutritional value as well. Yeah,
I mean, so for me, I'm now experimenting again, trying to find the perfect potato for the new crop. So again, you know, people have a go, you know, grow different potatoes. So next year when you do, you know, don't just buy one bag. Yeah. Even if you haven't got room for all of them, you know, buy a few bags with some mates and all just have a little bit of an experiment and try and do it that way. You know? I'm
going to do that next year. I'm going to get a bit more adventurous with my potato growing.
It's good. So think about it, right? So we've gone earlies, second earlies, main crops. So main crops are now your roasties, all right, and it in my head, that's what they are. Go on, tell me best way to do a roast potato.
I mean, there's a million ways to do a roast potato, isn't there? I definitely flavour a classic roast potato. I don't want any of these extra flavourings and things going on. I want a really good, crispy on the outside, fluffy in the middle roast potato. And I think the best way to achieve that is by, first of all, cooking your potato to a point where it's almost falling apart. You know, the fluffier, the better. There's that sweet spot, isn't there, where it's not mash, but it's not, hard-boiled. You want to be brave with the boiling.
Just called it a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's normally when one of the kids does something and then all of a sudden, I'm making mash now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, funnily enough, one Christmas we ended up with mash because there was too much going on. The potatoes overboiled and I was like, sorry everyone, it's mash with the turkey. I was not very popular that Christmas. Yeah. You want to find that sweet spot where they're, just getting fluffy around the outside. Definitely salt the water quite heavily for flavour, but also it helps to start drying the potatoes out. So once you've boiled them to that perfect point, you want to drain them and let them steam really well. I'm talking, leave them in the colander for a good 20 minutes if you can. Move them around a bit so they all steam and let off some of that moisture. Then the baking tray is really important. So you want a heavy, flat baking tray. None of this roasting tray business with deep sides because you're not going to get the crispy contact with the tray. You want a nice, flat, heavy tray. Heat up some oil. I think a good veg oil because it's got a high roasting point. Plus, if you want to be fancy, you can chuck in some goose fat or something for some extra flavour. But a good oil that can reach a nice high point. Chuck in some thyme and some garlic if you want, but you don't need it with a roast potato really. So the potatoes are going to go straight into that hot oil. You want to hear the sizzle and then put them in. Don't mess about with them for a good half an hour, 40 minutes. Just leave them to do their thing because they're going to have surface contact with the tray, get really hot and crispy, then you can start shaking them up a bit. And I like to salt my potatoes at the end. I don't do it at the beginning because I find you get a crispier result if you salt them after cooking. So I salt them at the end really well. No pepper, just a bit of salt. Yeah. Perfect.
There you go, I tell you. Talking of Christmas, do I get an invite?
Yeah, any time. If you're bringing those potatoes, you can come any time.
Yeah. And one little bit. All right, so when we salt the water for the potatoes, this is how anal I'm going to sound now. Do I put the salt in at the beginning, or do I wait until the water's boiling and just before? When do I put the salt? Yeah, because obviously, from what I understand, anything that you put in the ground goes in cold water under the ground. Anything that grows above the ground, just as a general, we put in boiling water. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what my mum always taught me.
Yeah, that's what. So, my uncle.
That's what I tend to go with.
You salt though. So as far as I'm putting the potatoes in, do I salt them in the cold water at the beginning, or do I wait till it starts to boil and then put that salt in?
It really doesn't matter. As long as the salt's in there when the potatoes go in, it doesn't matter. You just want a bit of salt in the water content. And I'm talking a good amount as well. As you would salt water for pasta, think about it in the same way. A generous amount of salt. People say for pasta, don't they, as salty as the Mediterranean. I don't think it has to be that salty. No. But a good amount of salt in there to really get the flavour into the potatoes. And like I say, it will help to dry them out as well when they're steaming. So
I think when you make it, just salting your potatoes, think Italian.
Exactly. Think like an Italian.
Think like an Italian, which is a massive scoop of bang and then you go. Yeah. Problem is, I'm getting in the age where they go to you, you have to go easy on your salt.
Oh, yeah, I know. But salt is flavour. Salt's great.
Yeah. But also, something's bad for you, and 4 weeks later, they tell you it's good for you.
That's true.
So, but yes, and what about mash? So let's go on to mash now, because you said you made it Christmas. How did you make the mash Christmas fantastic?
Mash is just my childhood. I feel like we had a lot of mash in my household growing up, and it was always buttery and fluffy and just delicious, and we had it with pies and sausages and stews and everything else in between. So I think I'm pretty good at making mash. So lots of butter. I should caveat this by saying my daughter is allergic to dairy, which breaks my heart.
Oh, bless.
So I have to make a little side portion for her, which I've also, nailed a dairy-free mash as well. But for a classic mash, loads of butter. I actually favour either sour cream or creme fraiche over cream or milk because I like that bit of acidity that it gives the mash. because it's sweet and creamy and rich, isn't it? So just a little bit of acidity through it is really, really good. And then, I'm quite partial to flavouring a mash. Unlike the roasties, where I'm a purist, I don't mind a bit of grainy mustard through there, or, a bit of cheese, some spring onions for more like Cold Cannon kind of vibes, some cabbage through there maybe. I like mash any way it comes, basically. But the key is, get it really creamy. Use a potato ricer if you've got one to really get rid of all those lumps, because we don't want lumpy mash.
I'm laughing because my uncle, I suppose he's probably the reason that part of the reason I loved it, I suppose, as a kid, I'd spend, my childhood was quite complicated, so I spent a lot of time away from home as much as possible, really. And my uncle was a chef in London, so he was a really good chef. And then they had pubs and whatever. And the story goes that they used to sit me on the side and, in the kitchen through a service, and I'd sit and watch, But last time he came to our house, the time before he came to our house, we only had a masher, and he was making the mashed potatoes with us, wasn't he? Anyway, so the next time he turned up with a exactly what you said. He said, "You need one of them, boy."
Giant garlic crusher.
He says, "You need one of them." It's like, mate, all right, He'd get rid of that, and he threw it in the bin. So I like that idea that sort of you're flavouring and those little tips, isn't it?
The little touches. Yeah, my mum was the opposite. She would see me with a potato masher and be like, "What are you using? Just use the good old, a ricer." And she'd say, "Just get the masher out." She doesn't. You don't need all these, extra gadgets. But I do think it gives you super smooth mash, and it prevents you from overworking the mash as well, because it can become a bit glutinous, can't it?
It becomes a bit, and I've done that a few times. You get the sense it starts to feel a bit, and it feels a little bit like that as well.
So you want to avoid that.
Yeah, avoid that as well. Cool. So that's good. So as far as sort of tubers, what potatoes are, have you played with any other tubers? Because there's two others that I grow.
I've cooked with lots, but I haven't grown any others.
Right,
no.
so this is a good one for you. Have you tried cooking apios?
No.
Americanos.
What is that?
That's me showing off.
Okay, right, you're teaching me something.
Yeah.
What's this?
So again, it's a South American tuber. It will grow outside in this country. They get to probably about 4 inches. Look like a sort of a very long, thin tuber. They make incredible chips.
Okay.
I grow them in containers. They don't work that well in my ground. They work really well as I said, in containers, but they're a great climber. So what I do is I make these pots up of this Americas, and then I drop them in, plant them a bit like potato. You don't have to earth up or anything like that. Put a framework up, you grow them, and then later on, come late August, early September, on a good season, you get an incredible sort of rich crimson flower that looks amazing. So you get these climbers, and then the frosts come, and then you have a forage through, and you've got these new apios, and then save some apios to replant the next year. And then I sort of chip a few up.
Well, that's new to me. I've never heard of these. Try them now. You're going to have to sort me out with some of these.
I will save you some this year. So again, there's not just a potato as a tuber. And the other one that I grow, that I love growing, is oca, but OCA.
Okay.
Have you ever tried that? They come out about the size of a nut.
Okay.
Decent sort of, I don't know, what, centimetre, a couple of centimetres. Knobbly little things that, I suppose in a way you could say, they look slightly like small Jerusalem artichokes, that sort of idea, and grow those. I normally grow those edge of a border, so I don't even put them in the veg garden a lot of the time, because as they grow, and the foliage is a bit clover-like, it's beautiful, but it's got like a furry finish to it. So I pop those in once the sort of frosts have passed. They grow away, they scramble away, and then if we have a good season, you get a little sort of yellow flower on those, and then leave it, get frosted. The frost comes, kills the foliage off, and then you can go out and you can start to lift these little tubers, and they're cute, really lovely. But again, they're just something a bit different. And so what I do with those, they're not as tasty as apios, and they're not as tasty as the potatoes, but a little bit of garlic butter, they're great. And I suppose what I love doing is those little oddities, and put them on the plate, and people go, What's that?
Something new,
What's
different.
that?
Yeah.
So there you go. So that's 2 more for your...
That's so inspiring, though. That makes me want to get in and be a bit more adventurous. Now, as a cook, we are limited by what we can buy in supermarkets, aren't we? Or, a farm shop at best. Yeah. But it's a lot of the same stuff. And every now and then you'll spot something new and exciting. And I always want to pick it up and buy it and cook it. And the kids love it as well. Yeah. Even the other day they had dragon fruit for the first time and they're like, what's this? Wow, it blows their mind. So, being able to grow things as well that people have never tried before, that's just so exciting and inspiring. And I'm definitely going to start looking for some of those more unusual things I can put in the garden.
I mean, and your kids are younger, aren't they? So what, you 4 and 6, did you say something like that? Yeah, whereas mine are older, so they've gone through the board bit. But actually, even the youngest now, he's 16, just gone back, starting his A-levels. And for some reason, even with his mates, because, I've turned the whole of my front garden into a veg garden, they're talking more about it. So they come round and they want to ask me questions, so which I always felt that 16, vegetables weren't cool. But when you start sort of talking to this little group, of lads and girls and whatever about, and you engage them, you got that bit of magic. And that's why those different things, when you could dish something up that's and they're all looking at you as if, well, I've never had this dished up before. Yeah. So, we're not going to recipe away to the very end of this subject. But you've cooked me a dish because that was all part of our arrangement. So go on, what have you cooked me?
So I have brought today a tartiflette, which is a very classic French dish, baked potatoes with layered potatoes baked with cream and reblochon, which is the rich, delicious French cheese, which melts into the potato. And we've got some lardons in there and onions and thyme, classic flavours which go so well with potatoes. And I just think it really showcases the beautiful potato. It's classically cooked with more of a waxy potato. Really nice. There's something a little bit different to do with waxy potatoes, and it's just really indulgent and gorgeous, and it will put your head in après-ski somewhere up in the mountains, and it's a real rib sticker, but I absolutely love it, and I always cook this kind of late winter sort of time.
Mate. It does look definitely. I'm thinking up yet just so before we start, and before we do it, what I want to understand as well. You went to cookery school. What's the difference between cookery school and chefing? Is it basically the same?
So I went to a cookery school which teaches the foundation really of French cooking, but then builds in it in lots of modern ways as well. You really get a great understanding of why things work and how things work and the flavours that go together. So it's a great base level to build your food knowledge on, because you really get to understand the background of food, and you get to learn all the classic dishes like tartiflette as well, to chefing, because cooking necessarily for restaurant service, you're thinking it's more about home cooking, I guess.
More about home cooking, which is nice, isn't it?
I think.
But do anything in that sort of professional world, do many places sort of teach you as well?
Not that I know, there's a real gap in the market. I mean, how lovely would that be to be able to go along and learn how to grow your produce and then what to do with it? So I think it is, isn't it? Is get out there, grow some food, experiment what you grow, then also experiment how you cook with it. Absolutely. Should we dig in?
Mate, honestly, can we?
Give it a go. Let's do it. We've been talking for long enough.
Do I go the middle bit, which is a bit gooey, or do I go the crunchy?
I mean, I like the crispy bit around the edge personally, like the lasagna, the nice crispy bit.
Well, I do a lot of cooking in the house at the weekend, to be fair, so I do a lot of dishing up, and in reality, so I don't serve them up, and then I eat. Right, here we go.
Chef's perk. I mean, that's pretty good, isn't it?
Your husband, I've decided already he's got to be the luckiest man alive.
I mean, he worries about his waistline, let's say that. He has to run quite regularly.
Bless him. That is absolutely incredible.
It's pretty rich, isn't it? It's really nice served up with some, cornichons or pickled onions, something vinegary to cut through the richness of it. But it is like quinoa's elevated to the next level, and I bet.
Yeah. So, yeah, wow. This is like all of us talking until somebody gives me some food.
You're speechless now.
I am.
It's also, as we said earlier, it's really good the next day if you fry up a cold slice of that.
I think that would cure a hangover.
Without a doubt.
Well, mate, it's amazing. This has been to spend half an hour, honestly, just chatting, growing and cooking. I hope people have enjoyed it. It's been cool, hasn't it?
I hope so. I've enjoyed it, so I hope everyone listening has as well.
Brilliant.